Hey there, and welcome to the second week of the 2021 Z Pro Tri Series. Just like always, we've got the world's best athletes with us. We're going to put them through the ringer with 3 short, sharp races with a bike, run, and a bike to test their fitness and their Zwift racing tactics. Alongside me to talk through all the action again is Sarah True. How's it going, Sarah?
I'm really happy to be here. Last week was really interesting to watch, and I think it's going to be a whole new race this week, just seeing how people learned from last week and adjusting their tactics accordingly.
Yeah, so from the outside looking in, or like somewhat inside looking in, what did you see last week that you're like, I bet they're going to adjust that and try something a little bit different this time?
I think the biggest thing that jumps out is the role of the run. So looking at the men's winner, Jackson Landry, he was a bit more conservative on the run and absolutely smashed it in the points race, the third stage of the day. So I don't know if the men are going to look at that and say, okay, maybe we're going to be a bit more conservative on the run, save the legs a little bit for the third stage. Obviously, our women's winner, Lucy Charles Barkley, she really targeted that third stage as well. And I think that's going to be a fairly common strategy, is to be adjusting based on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, even to the point, Jackson Landry, I think we were like, man, why is Jackson running so slow? And he was a step in front of us. He kind of knew it was going to play out, and I think that was well played. So we'll see who adjusts that. But again, that run, as you said, even though we have paces you have to hit, it's not an all-out race. Absolutely brutal for them to hit that after a full-on TT. So if you missed the racing last week, or if you're unlucky enough to have never tuned into a Z Pro Tri race, we do things a little bit differently here. So to help you keep track of the points and how we're running the things, I made a little explainer so that you could watch along and kind of know how we're scoring points and how the racing is going to work.
Z Pro Tri means 3 short races back to back, and this time around, that means bike, run, bike. Points are won for each race. The most points after 3 races wins the round. It's that simple. First up, it's a non-drafting hill climb mass start TT. Only on Zwift can the race of truth work like this. Everyone starts together, but they're all doing their own TT as we have switched the draft off. Everyone will get a feather power-up, and first across the line wins. Points are 20-1 awarded at the line. For race number 2, it's off the bike and onto the treadmill, and for the run leg, pacing will be key. Points will be awarded for hitting a series of finish times, and some will go all out for 20 points, while some will save themselves for the final bike leg. Back on the bike for race 3, and every week we'll finish in Crit City with a points race. There are points to be had every lap, 3, 2, and 1 at the KOM, then 20-1 at the finish line. The athlete with the highest total points after 3 races wins.
Well, there you go, and now you know how the races are going to go this week. And Sarah, we mixed things up a little bit and how we scored the points from our first week. We kind of went through, I wouldn't say growing pains, but we learned that the athletes could make really big swings if they didn't run as fast as they necessarily could have to save for that last points race. So this time around, instead of all the points totaling up, where like Lucy Charles Barkley last week got 36 points, this time it's going to be a max of 20 points for the athlete that scores the most in that final point series race.
Yeah, it's making sure that the maximum number of points you can get are equal across all 3 stages. It's something we've done in previous formats. We listen to you guys. We listen to the athletes. We listen to comments on YouTube. So let us know. We're always wanting to adjust and make this series even better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we did what we could, and I think it's going to end up being a lot more easy to follow, and we'll see a little less shifting in the points once we get that last point series race. But to the first race, we're going to do the hill climb TT like we always do to start out, and this go round it's going to be in New York and the mighty Metropolitan. 203 meters gained and 666 feet over the length of this TT. Very similar to kind of what we did last week, a little bit more rolling going in to the final section of this race, but it's going to be a hard climb to finish. And again, Sarah, this hill climb TT, it looks like a drafting race. It's not. We turn the drafting button off. But it is also a little different in that in a time trial, generally, it's going as hard as you possibly can the whole time. Maybe explain why this TT being in points on scoring might be a little bit different as we drop into the race currently going on.
So we're dropping into the race right now, and I believe this is Ruth Astle at the front. We didn't see her last week. It's exciting to have her join us. She did very well in the previous series. So she's absolutely pushing the pace right now. They're right at the start. Now, what we saw last week was that the race really was determined the last couple of kilometers with the climb, yes, where the positions completely shifted around. And women were able, both in the men's and women's race, there was a lot of movement in the top 10. Athletes kind of falling back and other ones just jumping up, making huge gains by really targeting on that last couple of kilometers.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that was to the point of that tactics in a time trial where it's scored for this omnium that we're having today, 20 points for first down to 1 for last place, that a time trial becomes a little bit tactical. So, last week we saw Lucy Charles Barkley go out of the gate. She was in the lead from the very beginning and then had to hold on as long as she could while I think it was Beth Potter was kind of closing in there at the end up that climb. And I think now you'll see athletes that realize that, no, all I have to do is get to the front by the end of that climb. So you can kind of dose out the effort. And I think the other thing that's happening here, Sarah, is people that raced last week know how painful it is for those 3 races, and they're trying to just like limit the damage on the legs. And if you're a smart time trialist, and not that Ruth isn't, she is doing a great job getting the gap where she needs to, but going really, really hard on a flat section and then trying to accelerate on a climb is quite challenging. So we're seeing a lot of different tactics from different athletes playing their strengths, we should say.
Well, Ruth is obviously an excellent time trialist and very, very strong on the bike. She's an experienced Zwift racer, has done this format before, also has spent a lot of time on Zwift. So she probably knows her strengths and weaknesses and is just playing to that. They are keeping in mind that there's going to be a run stage, and Ruth she's a new professional. Last year was her first year as a pro. She's putting a lot of time into the run and the swim. Her strength is the bike, so probably she's looking to maximize number of points in these bike stages and try to minimize the damage on the run.
Yeah, and here's Beth Potter, and I'm noticing this week that she's starting off, and she's already out of that saddle, getting after it. Look at her on screen, 85 RPMs, pushing big effort. Is that she's pretty close to the front of this race, and you would say, seeing how she climbed last week, that if I was betting, I would say probably.
Yeah, if you look at Beth right now, her heart rate is very high, so we're seeing 170, so she is going all out. So she's trying a different strategy this week. Last week it was definitely be a bit more conservative in the first stages and then really ramp it up towards the end. So it's going to be interesting to see if she's going to target the last couple of kilometers, that climb, or just try to go for more of a sustained effort. She may have been feeling it a bit more on the run, where right now she's thinking, okay, if I stay within a target range on the bike and not really ramp up the second part, maybe that will keep me feeling a bit better, ready to really crush the run. Because she's a phenomenal runner. Obviously she's come a long ways on the bike, very strong, but the run is her forte. That's her background. So maybe it's hard to say. It's possible she was a bit disappointed. Thought maybe putting in a little bit more emphasis on the run to get the 20 points would have paid off in her favor. So right now we're looking at Meredith Kessler. So Meredith Kessler had an extraordinary race last week. She was strong across all 3. Very experienced Zwift racer. She's been doing the Zwift bike series in addition to the Tri series. So she knows this format well. I know she's hurting right now, but she is an extremely experienced athlete, is probably using this as a great way to build her fitness for the year, looking at the races on the calendar, but just maximizing the time indoors. This is an athlete who enjoys racing, enjoys suffering, and you can see it on her face, the picture-in-picture. She is really not holding back right now.
No, you're right. And what's amazing about Meredith is that we see her as this long-distance athlete. Like, she's one that can suffer over a long period of time better than anyone else. But you put her in a 20-minute time trial all out, and she's going to give it her best and probably beat most people that line up as well. And here on screen, we've got Emma Pallant. She is sitting in 4th place at this point. So, we do have Ruth with a pretty large lead with over Beth Potter at 15 seconds, but then we have a pretty tight group with Meredith Kessler, and then on screen, Emma and Lucy Charles Barkley not far behind, all within a few seconds. And Emma always bringing her A game with the entertainment. She's one that likes to be motivated by bright lights and some fancy music. So Emma always giving it her all. It's we can't always see what her facial expression is when she's so darkly lit, but we know she's having a good time.
You're absolutely right that it is fun to watch the setups of some of these athletes and seeing what they have going on. Here's another athlete with a pretty fun setup in her Zwift pain cave. So Lucy Charles Barkley, this is last week's winner. Very experienced Zwift racer, absolutely smashed it last week, especially in the 3rd stage, just picking up points left and right. It was really fun to see this athlete who is known as an Ironman athlete with that high-end power, going for those sprints every single time, just super tenacious, going after that.
Absolutely. And so now we're getting into kind of the meat of it here, Sarah. 1.7K to go, so the climb is ticking up 6% here for Lucy Charles-Barclay. What do you think the tactics are? I expected to come to this race and see Lucy off the front because that's how she tends to race. But she's now in fifth place. Is she trying as hard as she can, or is she waiting for these last, couple kilometers to try to roll her way back to the front of this group with Ruth Astle on screen now in the lead?
So, again, this stage, it doesn't matter by how much you win. It's purely based on the points overall for the day or for the stage is based on position. So somebody like Lucy might be looking at the or the time differential and say, it's okay. I'm going to move my way up to third, for example. That I don't need to overextend to do that. It's going to put me at a comfortable spot points wise, and I'll be able to throw down on the next two stages. So it is really interesting to see, some of these athletes, we're going to see a lot of movement the last kilometer because they are keeping that in mind, that it doesn't matter really the time difference. All that matters is where they finish in relation to each other.
Absolutely. We see Ruth at a K to go, just about. We're talking about tactics and how these athletes might react in the last K, but let's give credit where credit is due. Ruth Astle is absolutely destroying the field. I mean, she's 16 seconds up on Beth Potter, so Beth is within striking distance, theoretically, but she is absolutely throwing down huge watts. She has 30 seconds in a very short, almost a 10-kilometer race over Meredith Kessler, Emma Plant, and Lucy Charles-Barclay, some of the best cyclists in the sport of professional triathlon. So Ruth, you are crushing it. Good job. She's getting some thumbs up as we go through. So absolutely smashing job by Ruth, as she's now 850 meters to go to the finish line.
Yeah, she wasn't able to join us last week. I'm sure she was watching. Actually, we know that she was watching because I believe she was in the same room as Beth Potter. So she probably was feeling pretty fired up that when the gun went off today, she was going to mix it up and put her foot down, just really show that she was here and not messing around. And I'm sure she learned some things just by watching.
Now, what she didn't learn, she didn't have the experience to learn how much pain is in the legs after these efforts. So here's the question. Ruth absolutely destroying everybody right now. Is she going to pay for this effort later in these two races?
Well, it really comes down to what her strategy is with the run. It doesn't necessarily pay to go all out effort. She may say, I'm going to use it as a bit more of a recovery. Now, Ruth she's nearing the finish mark. She's about 400 meters to go. It looks like there is no challenge coming from behind. Last week, it looked like it was possible that Beth would be closing the gap a little bit, but Lucy held her off. Yeah, this is a comfortable lead. 20 seconds right now between Ruth and Beth. Now, the real fun is going to be seeing what's going to happen with the rest of the top 8. Now, they still have a bit more to race, and there's going to be some movement back and forth. Now, obviously, this is a non-draft format, so they can't get benefit sitting on each other's wheels, but they definitely are getting psychological benefits, keying off of each other, using one another to just maximize their effort.
Yeah, absolutely, and they certainly are, and they're battling right now that third through fifth place, all just within 2 seconds. But on the screen at the front of the race, pushing over 3.5 watts per kilo. Now I think she's dropping the effort just a little bit as she knows she's going to get those max 20 points as she crosses the finish line, winning our first race of the day as Ruth Astle, and we've got Beth Potter on screen right now. She is just 17 seconds back. It looks like she'll be about 17 seconds back as she crosses the finish line behind Ruth. She's going to be getting 19 points for her effort. And now here's that race for that third through fifth position. Meredith Kessler putting in an effort over 5 watts per kilo, trying to make sure she stays across that finish line. Those third through fifth destroying each other. That's pain. That's a hard way to finish a race, as Lucy Charles Barclay comes across the finish line in 4th place. Emma Pallant coming across in 5th, and Amelia Rose Watkinson in 6th place, making up some time there at the end. And the climber that we're used to seeing a lot further up in a hilly stage, Melanie Moore in 7th place, Jackie Herring right behind in 8th. Kelsey Withrow is going to come across the finish line 1 minute and 8 seconds behind our leader, our winner of the stage, Ruth Astle, in 9th place, with Helen Jenkins will round out our top 10. So what do you think? What surprised you there, Sarah?
I was actually surprised there wasn't more movement towards the end of the stage there. So this was a big difference from our previous week, where we saw a lot of athletes dropping back, on that climb, and other ones jumping forward. So maybe some athletes learned that it's not worth it to put in that effort the last couple of K. Might as well just stay sustained, because you go in with your legs a little bit fresher into the run. So it's going to be interesting to talk to these athletes after the fact and see what they have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. That surprised me as well. I think maybe it was because Ruth just went out so strong. It was her first time doing that hill climb TT first in this series. I think the other athletes, maybe we're looking at each other for a second, and they were like, oh man, we need to start riding really hard if we're going to not get beat by a couple minutes by Ruth. And here we go on screen, Sky Monch coming across the finish line here just in a few seconds. So she's putting her effort in. She knows what those final 2 races did to the legs last week, so she's dosing out her effort appropriately. But I think that's what's so cool about the way we've set it up, not to pat ourselves on the back, but it is, I think every week athletes are going to be adjusting their tactics because of just the pain that they're having to go through each week as we go through. But here we go on the screen. That is how it played out as we kind of went over. We got Ruth Astle in first place, 5.3 watts per kilo, 17 minutes and 5 seconds. Basically, for anybody that's done power testing, basically a 20-minute test, all-out effort, and she's got just a few minutes to rest, start warming up on her treadmill to run again, and then do another bike ride. So if anybody's underestimating how hard this is, look at those watts per kilo, and then ask yourself, would you want to run basically as hard as you could in about 10 or 15 minutes? Answer is probably no. So there you go. That's our results so far. It's definitely gonna have some shakeup once we hit to the run, but men are already shaking it up out on the bike course on the TT as well. So right now we're gonna go down and see what is what. And word on the course is Adam Bowden is actually in the lead at this point, pushing 5.3 watts per kilo at the front, but it's all pretty tight at this point, all within the top 15 is within 2 seconds. So we'll get a visual here in a second of how that is playing out. And right now on screen, that is Adam Bowden and Kenneth Vanderdrijs.
It looks like there is no equivalent of Ruth just off the front, the same way as with the men it's a bit closer together. So they're going to be looking at each other, keying off one another to really put in a strong effort. I mean, they're all separated by about a second. Yes, granted, they're under a kilometer from the start, but still, it doesn't seem as though anybody wants to really, really just go from the gun, blow up the field in the same way that Ruth did.
Totally, but I mean, it looks like they might be trying. Like Kenneth was just pushing 7 watts per kilo, so they're staying tight, and that's the thing that I think visually is challenging, Sarah, with this non-draft mass start time trial, is that you're trying to get away from people, so maybe you're putting out an effort that is above what you would normally do in a time trial. And what will kind of kill you in this race is that the last few kilometers are the toughest. So if you go out too hard and then you're trying to go hard again the last K, it's going to be pretty challenging. But right now, Jackson Landry, our winner from last week, seems to be doing the best job of it so far, has a second gap over Adam Bowden and Matt Hanson.
No, you're right. You look at the watts that these men are putting in right now, upper 5-6 watts per kilo. they are not holding back right now. They're putting in a massive effort. It's going to be interesting to see, like you said, whether they can sustain it. So last week, both the men's and women's races, we saw the last couple of kilometers, a lot of movement. Some people probably paying for their early efforts. Are we going to see the same today? Or are the men saying, okay, 5.7 watts per kilo, no big deal. I can sustain that all the way through. My guess is we're going to see a little bit of drop off, but maybe Adam Bowden will be holding 5.9 watts per kilo. Jackson Landry, these are athletes that absolutely know what they're capable of. So kudos to them if they're going to sustain this power all the way through. My guess is they probably just want to, like you said, want a little separation just to have that psychological boost.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. And to answer, I think maybe they will hold that. And I think what's cool about this series is they assume what they can hold for what will probably be a 16-ish minute time trial. But when you're surrounded by some of the other best athletes on the planet, and maybe you overextend yourself, and then have to find it somewhere at the end, I think we're going to see some athletes updating their FTP after today's little effort, because there's no doubt Jackson is going for it. And again, this is an athlete that completely understands the racing tactics in Zwift in general, but absolutely knocked it out of the park last week with kind of overthinking and over-planning everybody else and being like, man, I'm going to take it casual that second run and then be there in that final race. So the fact that he's going out this hard and being this aggressive early makes me think he also might have something else up his sleeve for this one.
Well, there's only one way to find out, and that's to continue watching the racing. So right now we have Adam Bowden on camera. Now this athlete, he started off last week very well. It's going to be fun to see him. He did very well in the first stage. Was, I believe, second. You can correct me, second or third in the first stage last week. And it looks like he wants to repeat that. He has a nice little support crew. You can see the picture-in-picture. They're cheering him on. He's getting some extra watts. So let's make sure that he has his cheer squad there all the way through today. So he is absolutely just out of the saddle, pushing hard, over 400 watts. These men are not holding back. Adam has a really interesting story. He's a former steeplechaser who then moved to some ITU racing and has now found some footing in the non-draft racing. And it's one of the things you have to love about triathlon is that we get athletes, from single sports being able to find a new sport in triathlon, and then even within that, being able to discover, whether it's doing the off-road stuff, doing the long stuff. We have as for athletes. But today we have our duathletes, our short course athletes, our long course athletes, all mixing it up. So this is such an exceptional opportunity for these athletes who normally wouldn't be racing one another to be mixing it up virtually.
Yeah, it's super unique, and no other time could you be racing the best athletes on the planet and then have your family 2 feet away from you cheering you on the whole time. So that's pretty darn cool to see, and I think that's one of the reasons these athletes are pretty excited to race and be a part of this series. But so as you said, Jackson Landry, Adam Bowden up there, but lurking as he always does, it seems like in these races, is third place Anthony Casas on screen. This is an athlete that certainly knows how to race Zwift in general, but doses his time trial effort perfectly in these mass start hill climb time trials. Anthony he understands the tactics of these races. He knows how the points work out, and I swear he either has somebody in his room adding points up, or he's got a little notepad where he always knows exactly how many points he needs, who's where. So right now he's put himself in a great position to be able to capitalize in this first race, being only 1 second now behind their leader Adam Bowden. But within 3 seconds we have Matt Hanson, Kenneth Van der Drijs, Anthony Casas, Jackson Landry, and Sepp Oden as well. So super tight racing so far here. Sarah, as you said, there is no equal to Ruth Astle in that women's race. She definitely made it her own, and the men are having a much tougher time deciding who's going to win this first stage.
No, absolutely. So last week, Anthony Costas, he had a bit of a transition issue and missed out on the run. Hopefully he has everything dialed in. We can get to see him in all 3 stages this week. You know, there's a lot to juggle. I think we can. It's easy for us to underestimate the amount of effort they're putting in, and then they have to switch over to the treadmill, get everything set up. So we have another athlete on screen right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is a duathlete. So an athlete who normally does a run bike run, but it's a bit of an inverted format for him.
Yeah, no, and he did a great job of it last week. He proved that he has confidence in running after a bike ride, and then in this case, also riding after a run as well. I think he ended up second place after we shifted all the results around. We had provisional results last week. We had originally our results were just a tiny bit off, as we had the scoring on the men's run just 4 points off basically for everybody but Matt Hanson. So in the end it was Jackson Laundrie, Sepp in second, and then Johnny Brownlee in third place. But yeah, and another duathlete on screen here is Kenny Vanderdrijs, and he's one that we always love to watch, always very aggressive. He now is 5 seconds behind Adam. So Adam is starting to stretch things out a little bit here, Sarah. Adam now has 2 seconds over Anthony Costas, 2.5 seconds over Sepp Oden, 5.5 over Kenneth Vanderdrijs, and Jackson Laundrie has fallen to 5th place, but just 6 seconds back. So 4 kilometers to go. Things are starting to stretch out.
Yeah, no, this is a pretty. It happened while we were too busy talking about the individual athletes. We get a little chatty sometimes. Matt and I enjoy talking, so we weren't paying attention to the fact that there is some separation between athletes right now. It looks like Adam Bowden's in a pretty good position, but Anthony Costas, like Matt said, he really understands this format. He knows how to dole out his effort accordingly, and he's very good at that uphill finish. So he's probably saying, I'm in a pretty great place. Wants to enter stage 2 with possibly the maximum 20 points. We'll find out in a few kilometers, but my guess is we're gonna see a little bit of movement in the men, more so than we saw with the women today.
No, I think you're right, absolutely. And we're talking about those top 5 athletes, but I'm looking back at 10th place is Aaron Royal, and he's only 13 seconds back, and we haven't hit the climb yet. So anything can change in these last 3 kilometers, certainly once it starts pitching up closer to the finish. And I think right now, we see again 13 seconds from 1st to 10th place. It's going to be a lot more than 13 seconds from 1st to 10th, and I think we might see a big jumble of names from 1st to 5th. But right now it is Adam Bowden getting cheered on. Maybe this goes to part of the tactics is making sure you've got your friends and family there cheering you on and keeping you motivated the whole time. But he is doing a great job of it, with Anthony Costas just 1 second behind. Right now on screen we have Matt Hanson, who's sitting in 5th place, currently getting overtaken by Christian Hogenhag, who's sitting in 6th place, and those athletes are riding just 9 seconds behind our leader. That's Matt Hanson. We saw him last week go out of the gun hot on the run. Definitely had the fastest run of the day, and talking to him after the race, he explained that that was his tactic. He needed to make sure he got max points and just trying to hang on in that point series race. And Matt's doing a great job of looks like he might have a chance of finishing a little bit higher up in this first hill climb TT, as he's just under 10 seconds off the lead as we start going into the climbing section of this course.
I wouldn't be surprised if his strategy with the run is the same. This is a man who loves to run hard, and I won't be surprised if he just tries to do this, just wants to blow up the race today on the run, especially with the way that we tweaked the format and made the 3rd stage equivalent points wise to the 1st and 2nd. It's not, it disincentivizes just focusing solely on the 3rd stage. You really consistency will be key for these athletes to do well overall.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, and I think you might have athletes maybe throwing down, trying to go even harder on the run than maybe they were thinking, and then just saving it for the final sprint of that points race too to get more points. But here we go. We see things ticking up right here, 15%, as Christian Hogenhag is over 8 watts per kilo. So he's the mover right now, moving up into 4th place. He's passed Kenneth Van der Drijs. Man, for someone that was pushing 8 watts per kilo, I expected a lot more movement on the bike. Man, he rolls pretty darn smooth while he's putting out those big watts, huh, Sarah?
Yeah, not too bad. So a couple years ago, Christian had a pretty breakthrough race with his win at Ironman Hamburg, and it's going to be fun to see what this young athlete's going to be doing over the next few years. But yeah, he probably was mentally targeting when you see that red line on the road and you know it's go time. You have 1 kilometer left, just over a kilometer left. Make it count. It does make a difference. You break up the course. A lot of us will break up the course in segments and really change how we approach things accordingly.
You can tell that's great point, Sarah. You can tell as an athlete that had a very specific race plan going into this time trial, and is trying to execute it as best he could. And yeah, you're right. He had a great race there a couple years ago. A bunch of energy as he came across the finish line. You'll be reminded. We'll see if he shows that same energy today in his results. But no surprise, who's made his way to the front of this race is Anthony Costas. He's overtaken Sepp Oden, and Adam Bowden is now riding in 3rd place. So Anthony Costas now putting in those over 6 watts per kilo effort as he's now within a kilometer to go. He has 4 seconds over Sepp Oden. So I think you'll start seeing Anthony Costas dose out his energy. He's putting the big watts in now, but I think as we get closer, he'll start dialing it in. He knows he just needs to cross that finish line first, but man, tactical indeed.
Now, Anthony knows his body really well and really understands the Zwift racing, and he really times that to perfection. Now, does he need to go maximum effort for the final 500 meters? No, he could dial it back a bit. Again, all of that matters is the number of points. Based on positioning, it doesn't matter how much he wins by. So he could basically cruise in for the final few meters here. Yeah,
absolutely. It doesn't seem like he's choosing to do so yet, but actually now as we say that, he's down at 5 watts per kilo, over 14%, kicking back over at 6 watts per kilo. So he knows that Sepp is right there. It doesn't look like he's too far behind, 3 seconds. So Sepp is putting in huge effort to try to catch Anthony off guard and make sure he holds him accountable to go as hard as he possibly can across that finish line. As they're at 10%, 200 meters to go. It's 2.8 seconds now. Sepp is closing the gap, absolutely fighting to the very, very finish. Anthony wanted to play it tactically and ease up at the end, but Sepp is not letting that happen. So 140 meters to go. Sepp Oden just 2.5 seconds behind Anthony Costas as they come up to the finish line, and it looks like Sepp has tapped out, and Anthony Costas is going to be able to cross that finish line in first place, getting full 20 points. Sepp Oden crosses the finish line just behind, getting himself 19 points. His fellow countryman is coming across the finish line in 3rd place as Kenneth Van der Drijs, 11 seconds back. Christian Hogenhag comes across the finish line in 4th at 13 seconds, and right now we'll see our early leader and fan favorite Adam Bowden coming across the finish line in 5th place. And Aaron Royal, a big mover, 19 seconds back, comes across the finish line in 6th. Jackson Laundry in 7th. Matt Hanson in 8th. Ronnie Schildek in 9th. And on screen right now, Florian Anger in 10th place. Reese Barclay coming across the finish line in 11th. So it ended up a lot tighter in the men's race when it came down to the finish. So no standout like we had with Ruth in the first one, but a lot of battles, and as you said, Sarah, a lot of movement as we got to that final climb.
Watching an athlete like Aaron Royal, he was sitting in 10th for most of it and then moved his way up to 6th. That was pretty exciting. Watching Adam Bowden and Jackson Laundry, who were pushing at the front, the start, and dropped back a bit. Really more a testament to the other athletes dialing up hard for that final climb. I would actually guess that their power profile looks pretty even. Jackson's and Adams look pretty even across the effort. It's more that these other guys ramped it up.
No, I think that's a really good point. It's a lot harder to put out close to 6 watts per kilo on a flat than it is at the finish, and I think there's kind of probably evened out over time. And on screen we see Jan van Berkel coming across the finish line here just in a few seconds. He's going to get 15th place, just about 2 minutes behind our leader of the day, Anthony Costas. And if it was ever a doubt for a while, I was like, man, Anthony's riding in like 6th or 7th place. I wonder if he feels good. Of course he does. He's just taking his time. He's automatic when it comes to these time trials. So we'll see, though, tactic-wise, the biggest part of his day is going to be this transition. It failed him last time. In this week, if any athlete doesn't make any of our stages, they get an automatic disqualification. So they're going to definitely be focused on making sure they get to that run in time, plenty of time to warm up and make sure everything's connected so they can be a part of our racing here today. But on screen, you can see Anthony Costas with 6 watts per kilo, 15 minutes, 52 seconds. And we are going to go down to our women's race that is already in progress and see kind of who's shooting for what.
So it looks like similar to last week, Melanie Morrow's at the front pushing the pace, wants to get those maximum 20 points like she did in the previous week.
For her to be able to get those points, we're kind of looking at chart here right now. It looks like for 20 points, she's going to need to average 17 kilometers per hour. And right now she is right a little bit over that, as is Beth Potter. And then kind of our next section for points is going to be 16 points, and that's going to be averaging 16 kilometers per hour, or 3:45 minute per K pace. And then our next standard is going to be 12 points at 15 kilometers per hour, and then it'll go down to 14K and 13K. So right now on screen, again, leading the race is Melanie Moore, but she does have company in Beth Potter. And at this point, it looks like Helen Jenkins, Emma Plant, Lucy Charles Barkley, Jackie Herring, Meredith Kessler, and Sky Monch are all going for that 17 kilometer per hour goal.
Yeah, so these athletes went into the stage with pace targets in mind, and obviously on the day you might adjust it. Now we have a nice little chart for you this week to be able to keep an eye on exactly how fast they're running. So 3:32 minutes per kilometer for this front couple of women. Nothing to sniff at. That's moving pretty strong. The other paces, it's if you are a Zwifter, you understand that you're not just casually jogging 3:45 minutes per kilometer either. I mean, all these paces, they're going to be feeling it afterwards. One of the challenges is that it does look very easy when you look at these avatars. It can look so cruisy. They're not even sweating. Let me tell you, in real life, they are sweating hard. They are breathing hard. This is not easy for them.
No, certainly not. I think that's a great point. It does look easy on screen, very smooth. I know that pace is it definitely doesn't, for most mortals, doesn't feel all that smooth. But there are still ways to attack this, like tactically. I'm looking down the list and seeing people's pace. Like Paula Finlay right now is running 16.9 kilometers per hour. Is there a tactic, even if you're going for a pace or a time that you're trying to get under, Sarah? Would there be a benefit to starting off, a little bit slower and then trying to finish out very strong? Or if it was you racing, would you stick the treadmill at 17 kilometers per hour and just hold on as long as you could?
I think it really depends on the kind of effort you put on the first stage. So if you're feeling a bit flat, you probably are better off, starting a little bit under and then ramping it up. It's easier to do that than the other way around. So the last thing you want is to get, halfway through, you get 3 kilometers in, you realize that, oh boy, you picked a pace that was a bit much. You bit off more than you could chew. So I think ultimately you're better off going a little bit under and trying to dial it up. Especially as we make that transition from the bike to the run, your legs are feeling heavy. As you go along, you start to feel a bit better. But it also depends on the individual. Some people really like to go out hard and find that rhythm quickly. So it depends where you are in your training cycle. If you're going into this with fatigued legs, really how you find that rhythm and how you get into the ideal pace for you, it does vary by person.
There you go. Right now we're on screen with Heather Jackson and Amelia Rose Watkinson, who looks like are going for that 16 kilometers per hour pace goal. They're right on target for that. And on screen we see Heather Jackson actually still side by side set up in their house they're living in together for the moment in Tucson with Paula Finley. So they're running side by side. Paula is running just about 6 or 7 seconds behind Heather Jackson, also looking for that 16 or 17 kilometer per hour goal. We'll see if they're able to get under that, but it looks like at the front of the race as well, Beth Potter is ramped up a little bit. She's trying to get on the virtual shoulder of Melanie Moore, as she's now within a second, both averaging 17, or currently running, 17.5 kilometers per hour. But Heather Jackson and Paula Finley, it looks like a nice little setup down there, huh?
Yeah, it's nice to have company too. Somebody who's suffering next to you. If anybody out there has a training partner, they understands that there's something to be said about sharing the pain. So the two of them last week, they had a bit of a delayed start with the run, but they kept on. They joined us. They have their tech team there to film everything and make sure that everything's operating well. I'm sure they're on top of things this week. Make sure that everything's operating to be able to maximize points and not have to try to play catch up. Nobody wants to do that in a race.
Now, it turns out they blew a circuit breaker, and I was talking to one of the tech folks, Eric Lagerstrom, last week, and he said, I told them to run an extension cord out to the different circuit, and they didn't do it. So I think they've remedied that. This week, but we were able to sit down and chat with them earlier. Let's see what they had to say about their experience last week.
I think that there's definitely can be tactics, but I think that you can only make them happen when you're super fit. I feel like that was as fast as I could run right now. Yeah. So I wish I had more gears to be able to be a little strategic, but I feel like that was kind of where I'm at. So I don't know, maybe next week I'll be a bit fitter, but it's also starting with the TT. There's not quite as much tactics involved in that. You just kind of have to go hard for 18 minutes, and the tactics come more into play in the crit when everyone's a little more tired. So I think every week everyone gets a little bit smarter and more used to the racing. So it gets a little easier week after week, just in terms of knowing the game a little better.
Yeah, tactic wise, what Paula's talking about, I mean, she can be more tactical with the bike run bike. I still have to practice the actual in ride tactics, because I was yelling at Waddy give me the aero helmet, and Paula was you need to wait for 300 meters, and I didn't have it left.
I'm still teaching Heather how to use her power-ups properly for the end. Got to save it for the sprint.
Yeah.
Well, you have to love that they ended up the day last week with some smiles on their faces, despite some of that learning curve. This is a platform where the more you do it, the more familiar you get. So it looks like Heather is getting some good pointers from Paula, and the two of them are going through the process together. Now it looks like Melanie and Beth side by side up at the front. Now they should be comfortably hitting that 20-point time cutoff.
Yeah, no, it looks like they're going to have a little bit of room to spare, so maybe they did go out, as you said, felt good and went out a little bit hot and will settle in, or maybe it's just a pride thing. Beth wants to get across that finish line in front of Melanie, and they're going to battle for it a little bit. But to me, Sarah, it's interesting looking at the tactics the women, especially looking at kind of how specifically, I guess, the men's race last week had more of a swing with someone being very cautious in that run, in the fact that it looks like a majority of our like competitors that are, might fight for the overall win today are all going for that 17 kilometer per hour goal pace. And I think maybe that's a result of us changing the weight of the points for our last point series race.
We'll have to ask them after the fact. My guess is they realize that they can't just target the big points at the end, especially if you start running and you realize that your competition, a lot of them who will be in the mix for overall win today, are running 17 kilometers per hour. All of a sudden, does that change your game plan? Do you say, I have to go for that point total, I can't afford not to?
Get on the treadmill thinking you're going to run a kilometer per hour faster. You're like, oh, dang, everybody else is running 17.
A little peer pressure. This athlete, Helen Jenkins, that we have on screen right now, we didn't get an opportunity to talk about her much, but it's really exciting to see this woman back racing, joining us with the Zwift Tri-Series. She is new to the Zwift Tri-Series, definitely not new to triathlon. One of the nicest human beings you'll ever meet. So she's I2 world champion, 2-time. She's been to the Olympics for GB and, took a little bit of time off to raise her family and had back surgery. Really exciting to see her transitioning to the longer course racing and finding that life sport balance.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. You see a multi-time world champion playing around with us on Zwift. That's pretty exciting, and to know it's maybe part of that process to move forward to that longer distance racing and kind of putting all those things together is pretty exciting. So yeah, great to see Helen Jenkins running alongside Jackie Herring and Meredith Kessler running smooth in that 17 kilometer per hour range.
They have a nice little group there. In real life, you would be feeling the competition, wanting to half step, as we say, just wanting to be a little bit ahead of people. But here it's just an avatar, and you're trying to get to the line before the cutoff. So it's probably a bit more camaraderie than a straight up run race at this point.
Have a nice little graphic up on screen. We got 630 meters to go, and it shows kind of that time cutoff and what they need to be able to get under that for 20 points. And at 16 minutes currently running, it looks like they'll be able to get under that kind of no problem these first two for sure. And then just a little bit of a gap to that third through seventh athletes are all within a few seconds in that 20 to 25 second range. So tight racing, and again, a little camaraderie, even if it's virtually. It makes these athletes feel like they're out on course. And it was funny, you and I talked to Paul Finlay on the podcast a couple weeks ago, and she said the Zwift racing was kind of fun because it scratched that itch of like the race nerves and like getting out there and racing with your friends and competitors. And tell us about kind of how that can affect just breaking that training monotony.
Well, there is something special about racing that you don't get the same stimulus in training. So it's as Paula said in the podcast, it's even just trying to plan in advance and having a schedule and saying, okay, 3 hours before I'm going to have my pre-race meal, and just going through the different race motions. It makes a big difference to have something on the calendar, knowing when the gun goes off, you have to be ready, you have to be warmed up, ready to go. But then also, you just get more out of yourself when you race. I think most of us have hit our peak paces, peak wattage in a race. It's really hard to do that alone in training. Sometimes you just need the extra adrenaline of racing, the extra stimulus of having people around you to really push hard and find something special.
Absolutely, and even in this case, we're looking right here, and Melanie Moore and Beth Potter are absolutely giving it. Trying to get across that finish line first. They're going to get under the finish line in about 30 seconds quicker time than they needed to for that 20 points, because I think that competitive nature caught in there at the end. They were almost at 18 kilometers per hour as they got close to that finish line. They wanted to see if they could win that stage. That's pretty awesome. I think you're right. Racing brings something a little bit different out as we see our third athlete, Meredith Kessler, coming across the finish line. It looks like she's going to make it underneath in that time, as well as Helen Jenkins and Jackie Herring. And here coming across the finish line.
There's quite a bit of company in this 20-point group. Unlike last week, so we only had one woman, Melanie Moore, who got the maximum 20 points, but we have quite a few of them who are coming across the line, getting that 20 points, going to stage 3, licking their chops, thinking, all right, it's time. There are a whole bunch of women, similar points to me. Really have to step it up to contend for the win.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. It definitely was a little bit tighter, I think, than we might have presumed. A lot more of the ladies going for that faster time. So we got our top 8 across the finish line already. Right now, we got 9th place Paula Finlay coming across the finish line at 340 kilometer pace, and Amelia Rose Watkinson just behind 341 kilometer an hour pace. Heather Jackson, Kelsey Withrow across the finish line as well. So there you go. Melanie Moore gets across the finish line just a half a second, racing Beth Potter to get across that finish line in first place. So great racing, and I'm going to go ahead and say, Sarah, I think Melanie and Beth's legs are going to sting a little bit in this point series race.
Yeah, I think they're going to go in a little bit more fatigued than last week, but maybe they're feeling good. They wanted to get in a little extra effort. So, it looks like Sky just barely missed that 20-point category. I'm sure she's going to be kicking herself a bit. But that's a pretty large group. There's 6 of them who made that maximum 20 points in stage 2.
That's good. And yeah, brutal. Tight at the end there for Sky. Lucy Charles Barclay gets under just in the nick of time. But out on course already, starting in our men's race. We're already rolling. So let's get down there and see what the guys are doing for us there action wise. It looks like, is it our leader from our first race as well? For most of the first race, is Adam Bowden going out hot again, trying to get a little bit of space between himself and the rest of the competitors.
Yeah, Adam's a tremendous runner. I'm sure that he's going for that fast-paced category. So the fastest-paced category for the men is 18.5 kilometers per hour. Looks like quite a few of them are going for it. So unlike last week where we had Matt Hanson off the front just absolutely blowing up the fields, I think it's going to be pretty tight for the men. A lot of them coming through similarly.
Overshooting the necessary pace at this point, right? Like the goal, our first cutoff for the 20 points is 18.5 kilometers per hour, which translates to a 5:13 minute mile. And they're all at about 19.5 kilometers an hour, at least those the first few athletes. So there we go. Here's a breakdown of the run paces that the men will be searching for. So going out a little bit hot. And as we saw in the women's race, you know, as you said, once the competitive juices go, it's like, you know what? Yeah, I want to make sure I'm ready for that last race, but I want to win the race I'm doing right now. And we'll see how that plays out. I'm curious where our leader or winner from last week's overall, Jackson Laundrie, is. And right now it looks like he's just running smooth in last place, just chilling. He's letting the legs come to him, and he's playing that tactical game again.
Hey, it worked well for him last time around. So we'll see if it works well for him again. So everybody goes into this with their strategy in mind, and obviously you adjusted a bit. But it looks like a lot of them have a similar strategy of just, let's get that 20 points. But again, the physiological impact is going to be really variable, amongst these athletes. Some of them, 18.5 kilometers per hour is going to be turning themselves a bit inside out. But then you have, somebody like Henry Skuman, excellent runner, Olympic medalist. Maybe it's a bit cruisier for him.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's the type of runner and the type of strength they have. I think as a cyclist too, kind of affects that as well. Just their composition, leg composition on how they can kind of absorb those efforts. But the only people that know how hard they're actually going are these athletes. And my only suggestion or advice would be just you don't need to beat the goal time by a minute. Just get right under. Look at Lucy Charles Barclay. She was 1 second under that goal time. If you have to sprint at the end to make sure you get there, then get there. But right now there's some competition, and we're never going to discourage our athletes from trying to get the best out of each other. So right now it's Adam Bowden and Matt Hanson fighting for first and second place. They're second apart at about 19.5 kilometers per hour for Adam and 19 kilometers per hour for Matt Hanson. So they're not holding back. We'll say that much.
Yeah, no, it's good to see a bunch of these guys in the mix. So before, the picture-in-picture was of Matt Troutman, also known as the captain because he has a background in boat sports. I think that's one of the things that makes triathlon pretty special too, is that we get people coming in from all sorts of different sports, discovering triathlon later in life. And, you can even become a professional without swim, bike, run background. He is up there. Matt is up there in the mix with some of the very best in the world. And I'm sure when he was a kid, he was not envisioning that. We have awesome. another great athlete, Aaron Royal, who was not able to join us last year, who's here now. He's down in Australia. It's a very early morning for him. So thanks for joining us, Aaron.
He's absolutely crushing it. He's an athlete. I love just his running style. He's so smooth, looks so comfortable no matter what pace he's running. Now, I'm curious. So Troutman is the captain. Are there any other secret nicknames or nicknames that we're not all familiar with? Do you know, Aaron, does he have a cool nickname that you can share with us?
Oh, I think all Aussies have nicknames. I'm going to have to think about that one. You're stumping me. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I'm sure he has one. I'm in race mode right now. I can't be thinking about that stuff.
No, Aaron is an athlete that I think people underestimate his cycling ability often because I don't know why they do that, because he comes from an ITU background, but he has a great palmares as far as non-drafting racing goes, and that can tell you that obviously he's a well-rounded athlete, but I think he has a depth of strength that I actually expect him to bounce back pretty well and have a good point series race after this run. So I think Aaron Royal is going to be one to watch for sure.
Oh, is his nickname Bugsy? I think it might be.
It had to have a Y at the end.
Yeah, I think it's Bugsy. So YouTube comments, let us know. We're frequently wrong about things, but we'll have our people, read the comments and let us know.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, okay, so we have a lead change at the moment, just barely. Matt Hanson has put his nose in front of Adam Bowden, so he is now in the front of the race, still running 19.5 kilometers an hour. He's really getting after it, but on screen is Jan van Berkel. Strides per minute, 150 kilometers per hour is 19, so he's getting after it as well. Looks super smooth. I mean, he looks a lot more similar to the athlete in Watopia than I certainly would. He's got pretty darn good running form, making it look pretty casual as far as I can see.
Yeah, you gotta love the casual run. It always hurts my confidence a bit on Zwift if I am going really hard and I'm looking at my avatar and it's just cruising along. It doesn't make me feel good sometimes, but it does make it pretty fun for us right now watching them. We all would like to imagine that we run this effortlessly.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to the game designers and see if they can, if they have the technology to make the runner look as bad as I do when I'm running. I think that would be quite a challenge. But someone who doesn't look bad but does have an interesting running style and gets commented on it a lot is Matt Hanson. He definitely has a rhythm, and he's always so aggressive. And this is an athlete we saw at Daytona in the PTO Championship just absolutely roll through the field. He was out of the top 10 and ended up his way in second place, and he always looks like he's running as fast as he can, because I think in general he is running as fast as he can whenever you see him running. So on screen right now, Matt Hanson getting after it on the treadmill.
Yeah, he's in the place that we found him last week, just at the front. There's a bit more company in this pace group than last week, but it definitely seems like he always likes to run hard. He likes to get the most out of himself, and he's doing that today. I'm sure that his coach Julie Gibbons is pretty excited to see him just making the most of this opportunity for racing and training right now.
And right now we have on screen Henry Skoman, but tell me how unique that is, Sarah, for an athlete. And man, how smooth is Henry? I love watching Henry run. He looks so good and so powerful and just so connected. It's unreal. But back to Matt Hanson, just in conversation. We can stay on screen here with Henry because it's just so fun to watch. But how unique is it for an athlete that is so great at Ironman racing to still have that pedigree as a runner, to drop him into a race with a bunch of ITU guys and be in front of them? It's great.
It is really fun to watch athletes who retain their speed. That typically is the first thing to go, but you see it in both the men and women. There are some athletes, and a lot of that comes down to their training. Some of it is just they naturally have that higher end speed, but to be able to have range, that's a different skill set. So a lot of athletes really specialize, but that's what's kind of cool about the Zwift format is that the generalists do pretty well. So you have to be able to sustain high power. Now we have the run, you have to be able to run well and recover quickly off of it. You have to do super high end power for the sprints. So there's something to be said about giving athletes the opportunity to show their range that they may not always be able to show in typical triathlon racing that they do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a little less pressure. It feels like a training day to them, so might as well go as hard as we can and see what happens. And Matt had a great race last week, obviously on the run, and we chatted to him kind of about his experience in this Z Pro Tri series this last week.
The first series, I got dropped immediately, I think, and every time I would be frustrated that I held the highest watt per kilo out of anybody and got like 18th or something like that. So it's just figuring out how to use the little power ups and how to conserve your energy when you can, and just be ready for sprints, because they don't have to always come at the end of the lap. I think that's when I got popped off today, was kind of an unexpected surge halfway through. So I got caught sleeping a little bit and just, had a little bit too much fatigue to catch back up.
Yep, fair enough. Well, sweet, man. It was fun watching you, obviously through all the stages, but that run was impressive to watch you run for sure. But look forward to having you again in the weeks to come.
All right, sounds good. We'll see you next week.
Is it weird to watch yourself, Matt?
If you looked like I looked, how weird it is, Sarah. It's easier for you, I'm sure. That's awesome. Yeah. But I do love watching Matt Hanson run. So at least there's that, and he's coming up pretty close to the finish line here, Sarah. 670 meters to go. The time cutoff is 16:56 for 20 points. 650 meters to go at 14:20. I think he's going to make it. I think he's going to have quite a gap, and there's no doubt he's going for that hard effort. And talking to him, that was his first hard run since Daytona, so I think he's enjoying these efforts.
Wow, go figure. He's going to get hopefully 4 weeks of really hard efforts in, which will boost his fitness. So right now he has about 500 meters to go. He's going to be comfortably under. It looks like quite a few of our men's field will be getting the maximum 20 points for the second stage. Going into the third stage with a lot of them the ability to win today. So that makes it pretty exciting. It's gonna be a nail biter, I think.
I like to see is the kilometers per hour pace is rising. Aaron Royal is moving up, and I think he's just emptying the tank. He's clearly using this as a training day. Worth noting, he did not race last week, so he does not know how painful this points race is going to be. This effort he might be regretting here in a little bit, but it looks like he's trying to come up to the shoulder of Matt Hanson here with 250 meters to go, because they still have a minute and a half to go under that time cut. But I think Aaron wants to win this race.
I think he's going to run out of room here. 7-second gap, 200 meters to go is quite a bit. But, credit to Aaron, feeling a little feisty, wants to end the stage strong. It's there is no bonus for that other than boosted fitness and a little bit more confidence.
Bugsy's always giving it his all, right? Is it Bugsy? Okay, there we go. But so. Matt Hanson coming across the finish line, 16 minutes, and it looks like about 17 seconds unofficially, so about 30 seconds, 40 seconds to spare. And here we go in second and third place. It's going to be Aaron Royal and Adam Bowden, definitely well underneath that barrier as well, getting a good workout for themselves. Kenneth Vanderdrijs knows how to run off a bike, knows how to bike after a run as well, so he's got fourth place. Matt Troutman coming across in fifth, and Christian Hogenhag in sixth place, also going to make it underneath that barrier. It's getting tight here. The next few athletes just underneath. Reese Barclay makes it in time. Henry Skoman makes it in time. Is Anthony Costas going to make it in time is the big question. He does, as does Burkle and Henry Skoman as well. So Sepp Oda looks like maybe he was just outside of it, but we'll have to go back and look at all those results. But looks like we had a fair amount of athletes, Sarah, make it underneath that barrier.
Yeah, this is different than I would have predicted after last week. I would have thought more would have opted for the Jackson Laundry approach of be a bit cruisy on the run and then really ramp it up for stage 3. We're gonna find out whether or not these men may regret it. Who knows? All we're going to have to do is watch for stage 3, see how it affects their legs and their overall standing after today.
Really take Landry approach is Jackson Landry. He's going to end up actually finishing outside of the second cutoff as well, so he's going to looks like 8 points to the other athletes. That might be a little bit too much. We'll see, especially with the way the points are for that final race, 20 points being the max, but definitely not one to doubt, because I doubted him last week and he came back and smacked me in the face by winning the race overall. So Jackson Landry coming across the finish line in 15th place, running at about 16 and a half kilometers per hour. So good job, Jackson Landry. All the men are under the finish line. We'll get you kind of our points totaled before we get to that last race for the men. But here pretty quickly, we'll be heading over to the women's race. But right now, we'll show you a quick kind of results of the men's race. All these athletes on screen, Sarah, made it underneath that barrier of 16:56.
Them get the maximum 20 points going to stage 3. Like I said, this is going to be a tight one. It's definitely worth tuning in for stage 3 today.
Now, tactically, do you think any of these athletes are going to regret the 30, 40 seconds they could have gone slower into this last race? Or do you think they're stoked to go as hard as they can?
My prediction is that some of them will be wishing they had paced down the treadmill a little bit.
I think you're right. But Matt Hanson loves it. I don't think he'll change it because he just loves punishing himself every time he's on 2 feet running. He wants to run as fast as he can. As I said, Aaron Royal, Bugsy in second place. I hope that's right. And Adam Bowden in third place. I think the ones to watch, I think Kenneth Vanderdrijs is, he's one that likes to race really aggressively. So the points race suits him well. But he's scored well in that first hill climb race, and he's separated himself from some of the other duathlon specialists. So I think once we see these points add up, I think Kenneth is going to be in a really good spot along with some of our other athletes. So let's go ahead and look and see where our women are out in their race, and it looks like they're out on Crit City course, so we're going to join them as they're going. But first, we're going to look at our race total. So Beth Potter moved herself, is in first place with 39 points over Meredith Kessler with 38. Then Lucy Charles Barclay, Melanie Moore, and Jackie Herring. And looking at these points, that top three, all those athletes seem to be pretty good at this point series or this point style race, and they're only separated by 2 points. So I think that's going to be pretty tight. No, not putting out Melanie Moore or Jackie Herring because they're very, very qualified and have great tactics in their Zwift racing and do well in the points race, but they're 5 points and 7 points out of the lead. So I think these top three women, Beth Potter, Meredith Kessler, and Lucy Charles Barclay, are really going to have to fight for that max 20 points to try to move up the list.
I would not be surprised if you watched last week, you'll know that Lucy Charles Barclay goes for pretty much every sprint line and got most of them. So I would not be surprised if she comes out of today repeating with the win. That being said, we watch racing because it's unexpected. I think there's going to be a lot of movement in there. There are athletes who aren't on this board who probably are going to shake it up. So somebody like Ruth, who did incredibly well the first stage, I know that she loves going for the sprints. It's going to be interesting to see whether she decides to shake up the fields the way we saw with the men's race last week, with aggressive tactics, breaking things up a lot.
Absolutely. And one thing that's going to break this race up is the course itself. It's brutal. We're going to have points up for grabs every lap, which are going to be very important. And it's the Crit City Downtown Dolphin. So 98 meters total in climbing, but that KOM is pretty tough. So that sprint, we saw it last week going the other direction. This week, it's going to be, you're going to hit the cobbles, then you're going to see them going up a little climb, trying to go for that those KOM points. And it's going to be a challenge. And I think, we could see the race break up a little bit, but there's no doubt there's going to be action each lap. And I wonder, now that the points total is just a max of 20 for whoever has the most points on the day, if we're going to see someone like Lucy Charles Barclay, as you said, maybe hold back and not try to get every single sprint like she did last week. So we'll see when they get out on course. But okay, who are you calling? We're going in. I'm putting you on the spot. I know you don't like it when I put you on the spot. But
I'm calling Lucy.
Oh, you're calling Lucy?
She loves going for the sprints. Oh, yeah.
Okay. I wouldn't say that's a risky call, but I'm going to go for Beth Potter because she's been putting her effort in, learning the Zwift racing as she goes. Where she's raced with us before, but Lucy Charles Barclay definitely has a lot more experience. So we'll see if Beth has learned from last week, and let's see how much she damaged her legs in that run trying to outkick Melanie Moore too. So exciting racing here to come, and we'll get you the points. Updates every lap as far as who's in the lead of this last race, and then we'll be able to tell you who's in the lead of the series for today as well. But Downtown Dolphin, they are out on course and they're moving, and it's going to be fast and furious with sprints every lap. So bear with us as we try to call the action. But we see Beth Potter on screen. 5 seconds to go in the pen. Question, Sarah: do Zwift races start out hard generally or easy?
Oh, you want to make sure that you are ready to go hard from the gun. So if you've never done a Zwift race before, make sure you're very warmed up. The second that the gun goes off, it can be max wattage for the first few seconds. I think a lot of people are caught unawares and can even get dropped at the line because they're not quite ready for that pinning it from the start.
That's great advice, and yes, it is quite hard, especially in this race. They just ran pretty darn hard, close to as hard as they could, after a time trial that was essentially as hard as they could go for about 17 minutes. And then they're starting a race out a lot harder than they want. And then within the first couple minutes, they've got to sprint for points. So it's absolutely brutal. So I don't envy them. I'm glad we're sitting where we're sitting, Sarah, and they are where they are. But right now, pushing the pace at the front of the group, none other than Ruth Astle at the front, pushing almost 5 watts per kilo as they're rolling around. Emma Plant coming through as well. Meredith Kessler, everybody's taking their turn as they're now just 0.5 into this race. Sprint's going to come up here in a second as they come around. Again, it's every lap on that KOM point. We're going to see that sprint as well. So Heather Jackson takes a turn at the front of the group. Amelia Rose Watkinson also as well. And when they hit the cobbles, you know the sprint is coming up quick, so you're going to see a lot of big red numbers going. Amelia Rose Watkinson going for the sprint, 7 watts per kilo. Ruth Astle is coming around her as well. Meredith Kessler going for those points, taking that right-hand turn, and the sprint is going to be up here just across the line. It might have been Ruth that came over Meredith Kessler there in the very... Sarah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, one of the fun things to watch in a race like this is just seeing how they learn the course a bit better and trying to learn for the subsequent laps, exactly when to go. Ruth really timed it exceptionally well. I thought Meredith had it, but then all of a sudden Ruth came out of nowhere and just blew it apart. So Ruth lost some points on the run. But this is, the bike is her forte. She is going to want to be aggressive all the way through this stage today.
Yeah, and she 100% is going to be. That seems to be how she likes to race. Anyways, I wouldn't be surprised if she goes on a solo breakaway here on any of the stages, any of the laps here on this final stage. But Ruth at the front of the group pushing it again. And she's one that just has this raw power that she's not afraid to be at the front of this race, moving things along. And that's one thing we didn't talk about when we talk about those 3 athletes going for the overall win, is that, you could have athletes that aren't in that podium kind of sweeping up these points that are up for grabs on these laps and taking away an opportunity for them to score. And that, I think, is probably going to lend itself to an athlete like Lucy Charles Barkley that could be consistently in those top 3, even if someone like Ruth Astle comes across the finish line in front of her.
No, that's a great point. If you're an athlete who's targeting, for example, the finish line sprint and putting all your eggs in that basket, and there are a few people like Ruth just in the mix ahead of you, that may change whether or not you are going to finish well in the overall series for today.
Yeah, absolutely. And Beth Potter at the front of the group at this point. Jackie Herring, another one that really has that experience. And again, she's racing in the top 5, so she wants to make sure she gets as many points as they can as they roll up here close. Coming up on the KOM, they're going to have this right-hand turn. And onto those cobbles, we're going to see a left and a right. Amelia Rose Watkinson at the front of the group at 8.2 watts per kilogram. She is absolutely putting in a huge effort trying to get a gap as we get this right-hand turn, and the finish line is going to be right there, the KOM banner, Amelia Rose Watkinson gets it handily over Meredith Kessler and Ruth Astle.
Yeah, no, that was exceptionally well timed from Amelia Rose Watkinson. She had it pretty comfortably. Now, this is the point in the race where athletes are really trying to think about when they want to put their effort towards the sprints, because it would be almost impossible to go after everything like this and have it pay off. Do you go early? Do you try to go for all of them? Most of them are probably saying, okay, I'll go for every other. They have a plan in mind. But it's just, there's not enough time in between to be going maximal effort for the sprints and being able to recover. So, but that being said, you also don't want to be caught unawares, just in the group if there's going to be a serious attempt for a breakaway. So it's trying to find that balance between what is the right effort right now to be able to keep myself in the mix and not get dropped, but also not quite going for the sprints.
Said, Sarah. But yeah, I think that's on point. You want to be able to try to capitalize and get points when you can, but if you're putting yourself on the rivet and somebody does something that you can't react to, then you're out of the race completely. So I think we saw that in some of the races last week in the points race, that some athletes were put out the back and their race was over. So you got to make sure priority one, stay in the group and be there for the finish line sprint. I think, yeah, again, very, very well said. Jackie Herring at the front of the group, pushing 5.5 watts per kilo, but of course Ruth won't let that last too long as she makes sure she takes a pull before they get to the final lead up to the KOM. But Amelia Rose Watkinson, Lucy Charles Barkley, Heather Jackson, Meredith Kessler, all there in the top 5, looking ready to fight for another sprint at this KOM banner. Kelsey Withrow down there, Paula Finlay, one that always does very well in points races. She's in this group, but she's saving that energy a little bit. They're going to take that right-hand corner. We see some aero power-ups as we hit the cobbles out of the saddle. Looks like that's maybe Heather Jackson moving up, Amelia Rose Watkinson moving up to the front of the group with Ruth Astle on her wheel. Meredith Kessler, Lucy Charles Barkley, as they go under the banner. Amelia Rose Watkinson puts in an effort at the end to just stay in front of, it looks like, Lucy Charles Barkley and Ruth Astle in second and third place. Yes, so Amelia Rose Watkinson really going for those intermediate points this time, Sarah.
No, she executed 2 in a row very well. I would like to point out that we have a broken field right now. So we have a group of 9. You referenced a couple athletes who actually weren't in that pack. That's okay. There's a lot going on. And it looks like, we have somebody like Paula Finlay who's been exceptionally good at the finish line sprints. If she's 34 seconds back, it's going to be a hard gap to close. So having something like that not in the mix for the finish line sprint changes the dynamics massively. We have currently a group of 9. I would not anticipate that follow-up group will be able to bridge the gap. So we're probably going to see today's winner overall and for the stage coming from this group of 9.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. And I think, kind of all our big players in that top 5 of the overall have made that front group. I might be mistaken because, as you said, I often am. There's a lot going on here right now. But Amelia Rose Watkinson putting in the effort early on leading into the sprint, trying to make sure she hurts those legs. I mean, she's been a major part of why that race or this race and those groups have broken apart. So she's not content with this group that looks like about 9 athletes. She wants to make it even smaller, give herself more of an opportunity to get those max sprint at the finish line, as well as these intermediate sprints. Again, bottom left-hand side, you can see kind of our points going into this final point series race, but on screen, Amelia Rose Watkinson, Ruth Astle, Lucy Charles Barkley, Heather Jackson, and Jackie Herring all at the front, pushing the pace leading into this KOM sprint again, with Heather Jackson getting a tiny little gap in right position. And the sprint changes a little bit when a group is this small, Sarah, so we'll see who takes advantage of that. But they're on the cobbles. Everybody's throwing their aero power up. At the front is Lucy Charles Barkley in front with Amelia Rose Watkinson. Ruth Astle, Heather Jackson is there as well. They're going to take this right-hand corner, and it's going to be right there. Amelia Rose Watkinson trying to come over the top of Lucy Charles Barkley, and I think she does again with Ruth Astle on her wheel. And Ruth Astle was able to get kind of that bike throw across that KOM banner. She got the 3 points. Amelia Rose Watkinson with 2, Lucy Charles Barkley 1, and Ruth does not get off the gas. She wants to keep that gap and put the pressure on this group, Sarah.
Yeah, the fact that she crossed the finish line did not slow down at all. She wants to make her mark on these bike stages. She's a bit behind points-wise, but we saw that you can move up very well with 2 fantastic stages out of 3. And I think Ruth is going to do exactly that today. She's going to move her way up in the leaderboard if she keeps this up. So not only is she hurting some of the women and creating gaps. So we now have a group of 6. We lost 3 of those women from that front group, and I wouldn't be surprised if we lose a few more before we get to that finish line sprint.
Yeah, and that's how you know Ruth has great experience racing these courses and in Zwift in general, is the reason she kept that pressure on. I don't think she was trying to get away, but she knows that those athletes that are hanging off the back, once that group gets together and they're going on a downhill, you are not catching a group of 5 or 6 athletes by yourself on a downhill on Zwift. It's just not going to happen unless you have just incredible power. And if you just got dropped for a second, you probably don't have that in your legs. So she's capitalizing, and what she's doing is taking some of the women out of the race that had a better run than her. So she's going to be jumping that field. Like, she probably doesn't have an opportunity to win the overall, but she has a great opportunity of moving into the podium and certainly top 5. So, man, no surprise. Ruth Astle, every time she gives it her all and shows us what the race experience on Zwift can give you in these races.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how many are going to be left at that finish line sprint. But the fact that somebody like Jackie Herring, who was, going into the stage looking very well positioned, she's no longer in that front group of 6. That's going to hurt her points wise.
And here we go on the cobbles. It means we're almost at the KOM sprint. Everybody's using their power up as they should. Meredith Kessler at the front of the group. Lucy Charles Barclay in second. Amelia Rose Watkinson as they go around the right-hand corner. It's Ruth Astle putting in that final effort. Looks like she got across the finish line first with Lucy Charles Barclay on her wheel. Beth Potter on her wheel. Lucy Charles Barclay in third. So Beth getting some points there to try to stay in the lead of this race. Doesn't look like anybody's too stretched out at this point. It looks like this group of 6 is pretty tight, but Ruth Astle is making sure that group works to catch her before they hit this easier section of the course.
Yeah, the fact that she went through the line and kept on pushing the pace. This is how she likes to race. These women are it's going to take some of that high-end power out of their legs just even chasing Ruth. So here we have Lucy to the front, another woman who likes to push the pace at the front. A bit more conservative going into today, but I think it is tactical. She's intentionally targeting certain sprint lines instead of going after every single one, probably because we tweaked the format a little bit.
Right, I think you can, reserve yourself a little bit and try to get those final points at the end across the finish line. I think she would probably have preferred some other athletes like Melanie Moore or Beth Potter to be some of the athletes that had been dropped by those attacks by Ruth. But unfortunately, they're all still together. But I guarantee you, the legs are feeling it. 1.8 kilometers to go, last lap. So just one more sprint, Sarah, for that KOM banner, and then it's going to be hot and heavy into that finish line sprint. And we talk about kind of that rolly sections where Ruth was able to keep that group away. That is where a lot's going to be happening. So if she can keep that gap, she has a great chance of the finish. But that it's high pace through there, and then it's a right-hand turn, and bang, that finish line is right upon you. So it's all going to come here pretty fast and furious. Your call quickly. Who wins the finish line sprint?
I'm going with Lucy. I feel like she's held things in reserves for the last little segment there. Or Ruth. Ooh, I'm wavering now. Ooh.
I don't know.
What's your call?
I don't know. I think it might be Ruth as well. But Lucy has definitely saved, and I think that's challenging for her. But they are on the cobbles, which means they are very close to that KOM banner, and it is going to be just a few hundred meters to go for that, and then again right into that. So this is going to lead up to who's going to have a good finish sprint. And at the lead right now, it does look like it's Beth Potter getting max points at the end, with Ruth Astle behind, and Melanie Moore in third. Looks like over that finish line. We got the graphic upper left that shows you that, but they are right in it, and they're going to be trying to go. And right now it is Ruth trying to get a gap to get the max points across the finish line, because that's going to be very important. So it is a 1.5 seconds that separates Ruth Astle from Lucy Charles Barkley at this point. So there are little gaps. They tend to come together, Sarah, on this little rolly section, but Ruth is using her aero power up at the exact right time, trying to keep that upper momentum. 8.2 watts per kilogram, 400 meters to go. She has a group of 5 trying to chase her down to keep her from getting those max points. But Ruth is absolutely laying it down. Still 8 watts per kilogram. She has 2 seconds over the group. She turns that right-hand corner. The finish line is going to be upon her. And wow, she did it. I cannot believe she was able to hold that by herself across the finish line. Ruth Astle, second place is going to be, looks like Melanie Moore and Amelia Rose Watkinson fighting it out for that second place position. But wow, impressive, Sarah.
Now, Ruth really targeted this stage so incredibly well. I mean, as we saw in the first stage, incredibly strong cyclist, but then just being aggressive all the way through. Definitely made her mark on today. You know, the women are going to be probably rethinking their strategy a little bit going into the next 2 weeks, because just knowing how aggressive Ruth is on the bike.
Every week, because somebody's throwing a card that they didn't necessarily expect. But man, I am constantly, and I shouldn't be, because if you're constantly surprised by something, it means you're not paying attention. But I am always impressed and surprised by just how dominant Ruth Astle can be when she decides to put her effort in, and that's every time she steps on a start line. So great work, Ruth Astle coming across the finish line. Solo sprint victory after annihilating the field. Amelia Rose Watkinson had a lot to do with breaking that field up as well. In second place, Melanie Moore just behind. In third place, Lucy Charles Barkley and Meredith Kessler in fourth and fifth. So that definitely, Beth Potter getting sixth, that's gonna affect the overall outcome. We've got our people doing the math for us. I'm not very good at math. They don't let me do that anymore. So we're gonna see the results, the points totals here. But I think Beth Potter's gonna have a hard time holding on to those points after this. Now this is overall points for the point series race. So Ruth Astle got 32 points, Amelia Rose Watkinson 27, Lucy Charles Barkley in third, Meredith Kessler fourth, Beth Potter in fifth. That will translate into Ruth Astle getting 20 max points for this last race, and then Amelia Rose Watkinson 19, and so on and so on. But we will get the point totals for the 3-race series here today, here in a minute, after all our little mathematicians do that work for us, Sarah.
Yeah, and again, these are provisional results. We'll have the final results posted on the website. Now, as we saw with last week, sometimes we have to make some adjustments. So again, these are provisional results.
Absolutely. Again, we want to make sure we have all the accurate data before we get it to you guys. So if you want to take a look on the website when we're done, but we're pretty confident we're going to be closer this week after ironing out some kinks last week. But Sarah, I mean, Ruth, come on, that was crazy. She dominated.
Yeah, no, she is an exciting athlete to watch on the bike for sure, and definitely was sitting there last week just licking her chops. Couldn't wait to get in there. Blew things up. That was really exciting. The fact that she made such an impact on the third stage was pretty impressive to watch.
Totally. And let's not forget that she absolutely dominated the first stage too. So it's not like she was taking it easy, saving it for the third. So I'm excited to see how these points rack up, but definitely we're athletes being Ruth Astle and Amelia Rose Watkinson that really shook up that finals point series race.
No, definitely. It's going to be a real nail biter because, Amelia Rose Watkinson got a lot of points. She lost a little bit in stage 2, so she probably was targeting trying to move her way up. Obviously, Ruth moved her way up after stage 2 quite significantly with their results in the third stage. So this is cumulative. Athletes know what kind of deficit they have going into probably have a general idea of how they're going to have to finish to do well in the overall series. Now, neither one of them will be in contention for the win, I don't think, based on my rudimentary math. But we're going to have a very close overall rankings for today's race for the women.
Tight and definitely super tight racing in the men's race as well. So we're down here in Crit City watching the men as they are just starting out. Right now we have Sepp Oden at the front of the race with Jan van Berkel pushing the pace. Anybody you expect, Sarah, to dominate or really do well in this race that maybe that we haven't seen yet so far, or is it kind of normal, Costas? Is that what it's going to be?
Last week you kept on talking up how much fun it is to watch Kenny V, as you put him, just be aggressive in these sorts of races. So I hope, just because I love a feisty racer, I hope Kenny V's super, super feisty today.
And Sarah, the only reason I call him Kenny V is I'm bad at pronunciation, and I'm afraid to mess up, because you guys will tell me. But
yes, but it's also a pretty sweet little nickname, if you know who Kenny G is. And clearly Kenny V is way cooler, but it's still fun to say.
I will say they have a different vibe for sure, as far as I can tell. Definitely a little bit different vibe. That's awesome. So, but right now, Adam Bowden was at the front of the field there. But okay, so they are on the cobbles already, fast and furious. Again, we've seen it before in the women's race. They'll have this left hand corner and then a right hand corner right into the finish. So right now it's Kenneth Vanderdrijs at the front, Jackson Laundry, Reese Barclay going for the sprint there. I think it was Laundry, Reese, and Aaron Royal was first, second, and third, I believe. Yep. But it's already broken up, Sarah. People are already off the back as Jan van Berkel is 2 seconds back. So if they keep this pressure up at the front of the course, they're going to split the group on the first lap, if not certainly the second lap. This elastic is going to break.
Yeah, I think it's going to play out pretty similarly to the women, where being aggressive through that sprint line will break up the fields. And it's really going to come down to maybe a larger group for the men going to the final sprint line, but not the entire field. And that's the way these guys at the front want it. They want to have as few bodies contending for the finish line sprints and the intermediate sprints as possible. So if you can whittle it down to half the field going for those extra points, you're probably going to put a little more effort at the front end here.
Yeah, and right now already Florian Angert is off the back with Jan van Berkel. 2.5 seconds back for Florian. Probably not gonna make it back, but I think great point, Sarah. And it's not just like, oh, okay, well we lost two that round or that lap. But if it's already stretching like that, then the second lap and the third lap, we're going to start seeing a lot more athletes get spit out the back of this group. We see Henry Skoman in nicely now moving up to the middle of the group, trying to find good position. And maybe talk about that, Sarah. It's not necessarily just who has the power in that sprint, but positioning going into that sprint to keep you in the group, right?
Yeah, you want to make maximum benefit of the draft and be able to put yourself in a good position. You don't want to be the one in the front going in with 100 meters to go. You want to be second wheel, third wheel. Because this is virtual racing, it is beneficial to a lot of these guys who may not have the real life handling skills that some of the short course racers might have. Now we're going into the final sprint here, and it's anybody's guess. I mean, it's just they're all throwing on their aero helmets, trying to get the. Oh, my apologies, not the sprint yet.
There we go, Sarah. The KOM banner.
I meant intermediate sprint. I didn't mean final. Is that what I said?
No.
It's been a long day.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. It has been a long day. This is hard for us. Anthony Costas, no surprise, 3 points there. Reese Barclay, 2, who's great at the sprints when he knows which line to go for. He was confused like you were last week, but he fixed that. So now he's gotten points 2 laps in a row. Aaron Royal with 1 point. But let's see, are the gaps opening? Yes, they are. 3 seconds to Tim Van Berkel, Henry Skoman off the back as well. So it's already whittled down to 10. There's a chance those stragglers catch back up, but I'd say it's a very slim one at that. So already the men's race is being totally blown apart. Matt Hanson at the front of the group. Sarah, talking to Matt last week, he immediately was like, man, I'm not good at the points race. That's why I go hard in the run. But I don't think he gives himself enough credit. I think he's learning each week, and he's getting pretty good at these points races.
Well, that's what's so exciting about these sorts of series is that they are learning as they go along. The super experienced racers like Lucy Charles Barkley, they already know the format. For those who do it less frequently, there is a learning curve. And for Matt Hanson, as he alluded to in that little interview, he was caught, unawares at some critical moments. Those are mistakes that you make once, maybe twice. But he's a racer, and he's going to want to be in the mix. And my guess is he came in focused on, understanding the course, focused on maximizing positioning, and making sure that he doesn't get spit out the back when he shouldn't be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. He's a smart racer, and he got a ton of points in that last run, as unfortunately everybody else did. So it's pretty even there. But Matt definitely is going to make put that effort to good use here in this point series race. Aaron Royal at the front as they go into the cobbles, and when they go in the cobbles, we know we're going to see those aero power-ups. We're going to see all the orange numbers with those high watts per kilogram going out as they stand out of the saddle trying to get to that KOM banner. First, Jackson Laundry in the lead at 10 watts per kilo. Aaron Royal looks like comes across just in front. It might have been Anthony Costas there at the end. It was between those two, definitely pushing the pace across that KOM banner. So we'll have points here in just a second. We'll be able to see who was first, second, and third, but they continue to split up the field behind as Reese Barkley takes a pole at the front of the group. And it looks like it was Anthony Costas, Royal, and Barkley. And Reese is really doing a great job getting as many points as he can during this last stage.
Yeah, as you said before, Reese was sprinting essentially for the wrong point last week. He definitely knows where it is this week, and he's going to try to get as many points as possible. He's a little behind, but there's always opportunity to move up in the overall rankings by being aggressive in this third stage, and it looks like he's doing precisely that.
Yeah, he is, and I mean, he is a very, very smart racer on Zwift, and he knows the timing. The timing of the sprint is so challenging if you haven't done it before, and not only haven't done it before, but you have to do it a lot, and you have to practice. And as far as, we don't need to get into it, but as far as I know, I always go way too early, and you have to wait, but you need to be in the right position to be able to wait and capitalize on it. But Reese Barkley knows those tactics inside and out, and it's fun to watch him get points in this last race.
Yeah, I think especially the guys who know they're a little behind, they're probably pretty excited to see the fields breaking up a little bit and realizing that they have more opportunities to move up accordingly. So we are about halfway, we're just over halfway done. Their legs are hurting. It's getting hard at this point, and I think we might lose a few more. We'll see. There were a couple kind of stringing out the back after the last sprint line, but they managed to bridge back up. It's just whether you snap that rubber band.
Yeah, and as you were alluding to in the women's race, you have to decide when you want to put that energy out. I think now is the point in the race where they might be trying to save it for the final, but we're on the sprint right now. It's Aaron Royal out of the saddle, giving big effort. Anthony Costas comes around right under the finish line. Might have been Costas just pipping Aaron Royal and Reese Barkley again. His timing is absolutely perfect. As this group gets a little bit strung out, as they're going down this kind of soft descent, things are stretched out. There's an athlete 2.5 seconds back. That's Matt Hanson as a little gap. Matt Troutman a little back as well. It was Costas, Barkley, and Royal in that sprint. Things are a little stretched out, but it looks like Troutman is back on, but Matt Hanson is having to work down this descent to see if he can catch back up to this group.
Yeah, the hard part is, even if Matt bridges back up, does it come at a cost? Will it cost his ability to maximize points the last couple of opportunities that they have to rack some up. So it's going to be interesting to see what he has left in the legs.
Absolutely. Now's the time. It seems like they regroup a little bit here after they're down that descent. The pace of that front group slows a little bit just because gravity's not on their side. So he might have the opportunity to bridge back up. Still 3 seconds. Normally I'd say no chance. I've seen Matt do it before when I said no chance. So just for that, I really don't think he does have one. But he's trying, and I won't try to dishearten him as well. Almost 4 seconds. But right now we do have 3.5 kilometers to go, a group of 9. With the major players in there still. I'm still waiting for if Kenneth Van de Dries is going to try to jump away early to try to get max points, maybe on his own. Ronnie Schildek, he is a very, very powerful athlete. He had a good run there and put him in a good position for the points on this final stage. He is a very, very powerful when it comes to sprints and has a lot of Zwift racing experience too. So looking to see if anybody's going to make a move here with just a couple laps to go for a flyer. But right now they're taking that left-hand turn. Anthony Casas is in the front. We're going to see them hit the cobbles here in just a little bit. You can also tell when you see the aero helmets going, the aero power-ups going, you know it's time. And yep, they're on the cobbles. Aero power-ups are going. They're out of the saddle. Bunch of orange numbers. Kenneth Van de Dries at the front. Ronnie Stilneck at the front now with Anthony Casas and Reese Barkley. Big effort from Jackson Landry on the outside. Anthony Casas coming up behind, but it looks like a little bit too late. So Jackson Landry gets 3 points. It looks like it was either Barkley or Costas for second. It was Barkley for second, Costas for third, but the group is stretching out again. Anthony Costas Aaron Royal a little bit back, but all within a second. So it looks like it's all going to come back together here with just over a lap to go, Sarah.
Yeah, watching last week, both Anthony and Jackson were pretty aggressive with those sprints. It's not surprising that they are going for it. Reese, he knows where the line is this week. He's definitely getting some points racked up on the board. We didn't see Aaron last week. He's doing quite well. He's in the mix. It's going to be interesting to see the final results from today's stage. At this point, we really don't know who is going to be in the top 5, and that makes it pretty exciting.
Those points totals that we saw from this race that just popped up on screen, to me it seems like somebody really has to do something special and get in front of Anthony Costas to try to take some of those points away or move him back in that finish line sprint. So whether it's a breakaway that mix kind of breaks those groups apart, or a flyer, or just being better. But Anthony Costas, as far as I can tell, seems to be in the driver's seat a little bit. But Aaron Royal seems like he's got a lot of energy as we go around this course. Hogan Hogg has been hiding a little bit. We haven't seen much out of him. Maybe he's holding something for that final sprint. But definitely a lot of horsepower left in this group, Sarah, with just this, again, is our last lap. So they're going to go over this KOM, and then it's going to be fast and furious down that descent and into the finish line.
Yeah, it is. It's an absolutely brutal end of the course. We saw how close that is together, and their legs are going to be completely screaming. So it's going to be interesting to see who's even in the mix. We may have a situation like we had with the women, where it's just broken up, straight line, a little gap. We're going to find out. So we are finishing with our last intermediate sprint of the day. Right now, it is anybody's guess. It looks like Anthony Casas is positioned well at the front and Bowden right behind. And it looks like Anthony Casas again takes the sprint line.
Up there as well, maybe in third position, but Anthony Casas pushes the effort over, but somebody counters over the top of Anthony Casas. That's Adam Bowden. He was trying to get a little bit of a gap. He's trying to sneak away. He watched that women's race. He saw what Ruth Astle did, and he's trying to do it, but you got to be just as savvy as Ruth and just as strong to be able to pull that off. And I think with this large group chasing from behind, the women's was a little bit more stretched out. He's going to have a real hard time holding off this large group, and I think they're going to slingshot past Adam Bowden as we come here in the last 320 meters. We're going to get out of this rolly downhill section, minus 3%. We're going to have a hard right-hand turn. It's going to be full on. We got the aero power-ups going already. Adam Bowden gets overtaken. It's Jackson Laundrie at the front of the group with a full sprint with Reese Barkley on his wheel. It is Anthony Costas behind as well. It is Jackson Laundrie, Reese Barkley, Anthony Costas is what I saw in your top three. Jackson was saving it for that final sprint, Sarah.
Well, all three of those men were very aggressive for the intermediate sprints and the final sprint. So it just goes to show, you have that power ability to recover in between. It really can pay off points-wise. So it's going to be fun to see how many they racked up after today's stage.
Absolutely. There we go. And finishing out the top 10 was Ronnie Schildneck, Kenneth Vanderdrijs, Aaron Royal, Christian Hogenhaug, Matt Troutman, Adam Bowden, and Matt Hanson held on after getting dropped out of that group to finish in the top 10. You'll notice, Sarah, for me, I look at those top three, and out of that top 10, I also believe, and I'll have to get our Zwift fact checkers, but those are also probably the three athletes that race on Zwift most frequently. And I think that really shows when it comes to the points race, because it is so tactical. Moving around a group is a little bit different than being outside. Your timing has to be right. You got to know when to use those power-ups. So Jackson Laundrie, Reese Barkley, Anthony Costas certainly are very, very good at that and showed so today.
No, absolutely. And some of these men are going to have learned a few painful lessons today. They're all going to be a bit better Zwift racers for it, I think.
Absolutely. Here we go. Overall points. So Anthony Costas still does get the lion's share of the points today at 31 points over Reese Barkley in second. That's a huge result for Reese after that finish line sprint. So he stays in second. Jackson Laundrie gets third most points for this final race. So that's going to mean that Anthony Costas gets the max points for the points race. It's going to be 20. And then Reese Barkley 19, and so on as we go down there. So again, we are going to have our number crunchers get to this men's race and try to put everything together so we can get you provisional results here for the men's race. As I believe we probably have the women's results here done that we're going to be able to share with you shortly as well. But seeing Jackson Laundrie come across on top was impressive. And here we go. Looks like we had some similar points there from our women. It looks like a three-way equal points. Lucy Charles Barkley, Meredith Kessler, and Beth Potter, Sarah.
I would not have predicted it would have been a three-way tie. That has me scratching my head. I definitely trust our number crunchers. Is that a first in Zwift Tri-Series racing?
I believe it is. I'm not an expert, but I've been involved with each one, and as far as I can recollect, I have not seen that. So quite impressive to see those three athletes, obviously being so consistent, and they all did it in a different manner. So impressive to see how that ended up, and I'm going to have to get confirmation, but I believe the win goes to Lucy Charles Barkley because of getting the most points in the final point series race of the day. So three-way tie, but I will be corrected. But I think that is how we did that. So Lucy Charles Barkley wins in a different way than she did last week, but it was because of the points race as it was last week that she gets the victory over Meredith Kessler and Beth Potter. And man, it always impresses me. Those three athletes and all the rest of our women are so impressive, but Meredith Kessler continues to impress me that she can do as well as she does in long races and then still come out here and do races that on paper shouldn't suit her, and she comes across the line technically tied for first place on points with Lucy Charles Barkley.
No, that's definitely a testament to her abilities as an athlete and a Zwift racer in particular. I mean, talk about a nail biter. The fact that we had it come down to three women and just who has the most points in the third stage.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
Slight advantage, getting the title.
Totally. And again, I think that's going to go and be another reason that these athletes maybe looked at tactics differently going into next week. It's going to be the same every week. They're going to think there's another tactic they have to use, and then maybe that'll be thrown out the window immediately. But amazing racing. When you have a tie for first with three women, that's pretty impressive. Here we go with our 11th through 14th place athletes as well. So great racing from all our competitors. And again, Sarah, we have to say, we love having all these athletes out here, especially the ones that were here last week and came back, because we cannot tell you how hard this racing is. Everybody that we talked to first said, oh my gosh, that was way harder than I thought it was going to be. And second, they said, that was super fun. I can't wait till next week. So you got to love the mentality of these athletes that keep coming back and racing with us.
Well, these are world-class racers, and the fact that they enjoy the suffer, that's why they do what they do, Matt. You don't become a professional athlete if you don't like turning yourself inside out. And I think they realize that the benefits of this sort of effort will pay off with their fitness.
A fire, right? So I'm impressed and grateful that they continue to stick their hand in the fire that is Z Pro Tri Racing. So the word from the street is we have the men's points all tabulated to give you provisional results as well, and it is Anthony Costas who is able to get the win there because based on getting max points in each race. And if you want to win, if you get max points in each race, you're probably going to win.
Yeah, I think we realized on stage 3, Anthony was the favorite, but again, there was a lot of movement in the other men. So the fact that Reese Barkley ended up in 5th, who would have thought that after the first stage? He did so well in the final two stages that he was able to move himself up significantly. Kenny V, excellent day overall. Just it really pays to be consistent. Aaron Royal was also a big mover, moved his way up into 3rd. We're really happy he joined us this week. He added an extra element into the race series today.
Looks like we had a 3-way tie as well in the men's racing, but it was for 8th place through 10th place with Jackson Landry, Ronnie Schildneck, and Matt Hanson, all with 44 points at the end of the day. So great racing, and yeah, as you said, like competitive the whole way out. You kind of never really knew what was going to happen. Here we go, 11th through 15th place with Matt Troutman, Floria Angier, Henry Skoman, Jan Van Berkel, and Tim Van Berkel. Oh, look, the Van Berkels together in 14th and 5th place. No relation. Got to be clear about that. But yeah, so Sarah, same racing technically as last week, but somehow it felt totally different. Like you kind of never really know. I mean, I guess Lucy Charles Barkley is like, okay, you should know that I'm just going to win, but it's just seemed like we kind of really never knew it was going to happen.
Well, I think that's a testament to we made a few tweaks, but also the athletes learned a lot from the first time around. I think they approached the racing a little bit differently. They went in with a bit more knowledge of exactly how much it was going to hurt and where they really needed to focus their attention. It was also fun to have a couple new athletes in the mix to really shake things up a bit, and fewer technical difficulties. So we had everybody, as far as I could tell, who was a major contender, finishing all 3 stages. So that makes a big difference.
I think that's huge, and I think one point that you brought up, new racers that hadn't been there before. We had Aaron Royal, Bagsy had a great race as well, but Ruth Astle, first time for this round, she absolutely dominated the bike legs, and that was super fun to watch her. Looks like she's just kind of playing, like she's having a good time, and is clearly putting some of the best athletes on the planet in a lot of pain while she's having a good time.
Well, I hope they all have had a great time. I hope that everybody watching had a good time. We do pay attention to the comments, so let us know how we can improve. But we hope to see you again next week.
Absolutely. We're going to have more great racing next week as well. Three races, another bike, run, bike. And you can follow along at Zwift.com/ZProTry to get final results and to kind of know what's coming on for next week and the racing ahead. But I'm excited for next week, Sarah. I don't know what wrenches they're going to throw, the athletes are going to throw to us to keep us on our toes, but it seems like you and I are definitely always on our toes.
Well, we have to be. With racing like this, you got to be on your toes, Matt.
There we go. Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us this week. It's been a great racing. Obviously, thanks to the athletes for amazing performances with our two athletes winning, Anthony Costas and Lucy Charles Barkley. Sarah, again, as always, thank you so much for your brilliant insight and humor that you bring to the desk.
Thanks for putting up with me, Matt.
Always put up with you any day. Again, at home, thanks for watching, and make sure to tune in next week for more hot racing with the world's best athletes here on Z Pro Try. And until next time, ride on.